Have you ever had the feeling that you pray, you believe, you speak positive affirmations, you seek to strengthen your faith, but somehow prosperity never seems to stay in your life? Have you ever wondered why some people seem to walk naturally toward opportunities, growth, and abundance, while others remain trapped in the same cycles of scarcity, worry, and limitation, even while loving God and trying to live righteously? What if I told you there is a silent spiritual trap, a trap so subtle that millions of people fall into it without even realizing it, believing they are being humble when, in reality, they are blocking the very blessings God desires to pour out upon? There is a biblical story that is almost always interpreted in only one way. When we hear the name Judas, we immediately think of betrayal. But few people realize that before betraying Jesus with a kiss, Judas already carried within himself a mindset that was pulling him away from divine abundance. A way of thinking rooted in scarcity, fear, and an inability to recognize the spiritual value of what God was placing right before him. What is most surprising is that this same mindset can be present in the lives of sincere, religious, and devoted people even today. Throughout this video, you will discover why the so-called Judas Trap continues to affect men and women of faith in our time. And what is revealed here may completely change the way you interpret your financial, emotional, and spiritual difficulties. Perhaps the problem is not a lack of opportunities. Perhaps it is not the economy or age, your past, or your circumstances. Perhaps there is an internal programming that is preventing you from receiving what has already been prepared for your life. And once you identify that pattern, you will likely never see your reality the same way again. Many people grew up hearing that desiring prosperity is somehow incompatible with spirituality. They learned to associate wealth with greed and scarcity with virtue. Over the years, that belief becomes so deeply rooted that it begins to influence decisions, behaviors, and expectations. The person comes to believe that living on the edge is normal, that dreaming big is dangerous, that desiring a more comfortable life is selfish. And without realizing it, they close the door to possibilities that God may be trying to present to them through. The Bible presents a very different perspective. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, we read, "But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth." Notice that the text does not say God condemns prosperity. On the contrary, it declares that the ability to produce wealth comes from God himself. That changes the conversation entirely. The issue was never money itself. The issue is the relationship we have with it. Money amplifies what already exists in the heart. A generous person will continue to be generous. A selfish person will continue to be selfish. Resources simply magnify characteristics that are already present. That is why Jesus spoke so much about money. Not because he was against prosperity, but because he understood that the beliefs connected to abundance reveal the true inner state of a person. When we examine the story of Judas from a deeper perspective, we find a fascinating detail. In John chapter 12, verses 3 through 6, Mary pours a very costly ointment upon Jesus. Judas reacts immediately. He questions the act and suggests the ointment should have been sold to help the poor. At first glance, it sounds like a noble argument. It seems like a legitimate concern. But the scripture itself reveals that his motivation was something else entirely. The King James Version makes it clear that Judas said this not because he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the bag and used to take what was put in it. What we see here is something profoundly important. Judas could not see value where God was at work. His vision was confined to the logic of scarcity. He looked at the ointment and saw waste. Mary looked at Jesus and saw honor. Judas saw loss. Mary saw purpose. That contrast plays out every single day. Some people look at an opportunity and see risk. Others see growth. Some face a challenge and see failure. Others see a lesson. Some can only see what they are losing. Others perceive what they can build. The scarcity mindset causes a person to interpret everything through the lens of fear. They believe there will always be lack, that resources are limited, that opportunities are running out, that the success of others diminishes their own chances. And that way of thinking creates an emotional frequency built on constant worry. This is where many principles of the law of attraction find an interesting connection with biblical teachings. Whatever you consistently focus your attention on tends to expand in your experience. When someone lives focused on lack, They make decisions shaped by lack. When they live focused on defeat, they act like someone who has already been defeated. When they live focused on scarcity, they begin producing results that are consistent with that expectation. In Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7, we find a powerful truth. For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. The way a person thinks shapes what they become. External transformation begins on the inside. Perhaps you know someone who received an excellent opportunity and still could not take advantage of it. Perhaps you have seen people make money and quickly lose everything. In many cases, it is not just a matter of circumstances. It is a matter of identity. If the mind remains programmed for scarcity, it will find ways to return to the old patterns. Imagine a farmer who has extraordinary seeds, but insists on planting them in contaminated soil. The problem is not the seed. The problem is the ground. In the same way, God may place opportunities, connections, ideas, and resources before a person. But if their mindset is dominated by fear and unbelief, they will struggle to receive and sustain what has been offered. Jesus frequently taught about receptivity. In Mark chapter 4, verse 20, he describes those who hear the word, receive it, and produce an abundant harvest. Notice the sequence. Hear, receive, and produce. There is an inner disposition required for the seed to bear fruit. Many times people desire different results without transforming the mental patterns that are producing their current results. They keep repeating thoughts of limitation. They keep declaring defeat. They keep feeding negative expectations. And then they wonder why their reality stays the same. The truth is that words carry power. Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21 declares, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." This does not mean that mechanically repeating positive phrases is enough. It means there is a deep connection between belief, word, and action. What you believe influences what you speak. What you speak influences what you do. And what you do influences the results you experience. Judas was close to Jesus, yet his mind remained connected to scarcity. That is a striking detail. It is possible to be surrounded by spiritual teachings and still maintain internal patterns that block transformation. It is possible to attend faith-filled environments and still believe deep down that you do not deserve to prosper. It is possible to pray for abundance while secretly feeling guilty for wanting it. That internal contradiction creates conflict. One part of the person asks for growth. Another part resists growth. One part desires prosperity. Another part associates prosperity with something negative. And as long as that conflict remains active, forward movement becomes difficult. It was precisely to help people break through those internal barriers that many have turned to tools of mental and spiritual renewal. In fact, the ebook Attract Divine Abundance, available in the first pinned comment, and also through the QR code in this video, goes deep into exactly this issue. How to align biblical principles, faith, identity, and mindset to let go of limiting beliefs and develop a consciousness that is more open to the blessings God desires to manifest. After all, transformation does not begin when the money arrives. It begins when the mind learns to recognize divine abundance as part of God's purpose for your life. Think about the story of the Israelites during their journey through the wilderness. Even after witnessing extraordinary miracles, many of them continued thinking like slaves. Their bodies had left Egypt, but their minds were still trapped there. In Numbers chapter 13, verses 31 through 33, the spies return from the promised land. Some of them report abundance, fertility, and potential. Others see only giants, obstacles, and impossibilities. The land was the same. The difference was in the perception. This is profoundly relevant for our day. Two people can face similar circumstances and produce completely different results simply because they interpret reality in different ways. The one who believes God can make a way where there is no way acts with hope. The one who believes nothing will change acts with resignation. The one who expects opportunities pays attention to opportunities. The one who expects failure pays attention to failure. The direction of your attention influences the direction of your life. In Romans chapter 12 verse 2, Paul writes, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." This may be one of the most important declarations about personal transformation in the entire Bible. Notice that Paul does not simply say to change your behavior. He speaks about changing the mind. The renewing of the mind alters perceptions. Perceptions alter decisions. Decisions alter results. That is why so many divine promises are connected to faith. Not because God needs your faith in order to act, but because faith opens the space for a person to receive what God desires to bring about. In James chapter 1, verses 6 through 8, we read about the danger of constant doubt and inner instability. A divided mind struggles to move forward because it keeps swinging between belief and unbelief. And here we encounter the Judas Trap once again. It is the trap of being near the source without trusting the source. It is the trap of hearing promises without believing them. It is the trap of seeing limitations where God sees possibilities. Many people carry this mindset without even realizing it. They say things like, "Nothing ever works out for me. I can never seem to get ahead. My life has always been a struggle. Maybe it's just not meant for me." Although they seem like passing comments, these statements function as ongoing reinforcements of a limited identity. Now imagine someone who begins to replace those beliefs with declarations aligned with the Word of God. God gives me wisdom. I am capable of learning and growing. New opportunities are opening up. I can develop skills and create value. God is ordering my steps. Do you notice the difference? It is not about denying problems. It is about choosing which narrative will govern your life. David understood this principle. When he faced Goliath, everyone else saw an unbeatable giant. David saw a God greater than the giant. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 45 through 47, his confidence was not based on his own strength, but on the conviction that God was with him. Faith changes the way we interpret our challenges. The same situation that paralyzes one person can propel another. The same crisis that destroys someone can strengthen someone else. The same difficulty that ends one story can begin a new chapter. It all depends on perspective. There is another important aspect of Judas's story that rarely receives attention. Judas walked alongside Jesus for years. He witnessed miracles. He heard teachings. He saw lives transformed. But proximity did not guarantee transformation. That is a warning for all of us. Consuming spiritual content is not enough. It must be applied. It must be internalized. The teachings must be allowed to become part of your identity. Many people know what to do, but do not do it. They know they need to let go of negative thoughts, yet they keep feeding them. They know they need to trust God more, yet they remain dominated by fear. They know they need to act, yet they keep waiting for perfect conditions. Transformation happens when knowledge becomes practice. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 24, Jesus compares the wise person to one who hears his teachings and puts them into practice. It is not enough to hear. You must build. It is not enough to believe in theory. You must act consistently. Perhaps right now you are identifying areas of your own life where the scarcity mindset still holds influence. Perhaps it is in your finances. Perhaps in your relationships. Perhaps in your health. Perhaps in projects you walked away from because you were afraid to fail. The good news is that mental patterns can be transformed. Neuroscientists speak about the brain's ability to form new connections. The Bible has been teaching about the renewal of the mind for centuries. When thoughts are repeatedly replaced by higher truths, new possibilities begin to emerge. You start noticing opportunities you previously overlooked. You begin developing the courage to act. You start recognizing resources that were already available to you. You begin trusting more in divine guidance. And little by little, your external reality begins to reflect the internal change. That does not mean the absence of challenges. It means a new way of facing them. Joseph faced injustice. He faced imprisonment. He faced rejection. But he never allowed scarcity to define his identity. In Genesis chapter 39, verse 23, we see that even in difficult circumstances, the Lord was with him and made everything he did to prosper. Biblical prosperity is not merely financial accumulation. It is growth. It is development. It is expansion. It is the capacity to fulfill the purpose for which you were created. When a person truly understands this, their relationship with abundance changes completely. They stop chasing wealth out of insecurity. They begin pursuing growth with purpose. They begin seeing resources as tools to serve, to build, and to impact lives. They begin to understand that receiving is also part of the divine flow. Many people block their own blessings because they learned only to give but never to receive. Yet Jesus himself declared in Luke chapter 6, verse 38, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together, and running over." There is a flow, giving and receiving, without guilt, without fear, without resistance. The Judas Trap breaks that flow by convincing a person that something will always be missing, that there will never be enough, that life must be lived in a permanent state of anxiety. But God did not call us to live enslaved by fear. In 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7, we read, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind." Power, love, a sound mind. These qualities do not align with a mindset of defeat. They point toward an identity strengthened by the presence of God. Imagine what your life could look like 1 year from now if you began today to eliminate thoughts of scarcity. Imagine waking up believing that opportunities can appear. Imagine trusting that God is at work even when you cannot see immediate results. Imagine acting with greater confidence, speaking with greater conviction, making decisions with greater clarity. Imagine replacing the fear of loss with the expectation of provision. That shift may seem simple, but it produces profound effects. Because every visible transformation begins in an invisible place. It begins with a belief. It begins with a decision. It begins with a new interpretation of reality. Judas lost the ability to recognize the value of what was right in front of him. Do not let the same happen to you. Do not let old beliefs prevent you from seeing new possibilities. Do not let past experiences determine your future. Do not let scarcity become your identity. You were not called to live confined by fear. You were called to grow, to learn, to contribute, to prosper, to serve, to manifest the gifts God placed within you. And all of it begins the moment your mind stops agreeing with scarcity and starts agreeing with the divine promises over your life. In Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20, we find one of the most inspiring declarations in all of Scripture. "Now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly, above all that we ask or think." Think about that for a moment. More than you imagine, more than you calculate, more than you foresee, more than you currently believe is possible. But to walk in that direction, you must abandon the Judas Trap. You must exchange the mindset of loss for the mindset of purpose. Exchange fear for faith. Exchange limitation for expansion. Exchange scarcity for trust in divine provision. The question that remains is simple, but deeply transformative. Will you continue looking at your life through the lens of scarcity? Or will you begin to see it through the promises God has already declared over you? The answer to that question may determine not only your next few months, but the next years of your spiritual, emotional, and material journey. Because what occupies your mind shapes your choices. Your choices shape your paths. And your paths shape the destiny you build day by day under the guidance of God. May today be the day you recognize the trap, break free from it, and begin walking toward the divine abundance that has always been closer than you ever imagined.